34-year-old to stay with the Heat. He averaged 19 points during the Heat playoff run to the NBA Finals. See?
As Woj reported on Tuesday and Wednesday, this happened. Gordon Hayward has opted out of his $34.2 million option, and he is now the biggest name to hit the free agent market. No longer now a Boston Celtic, and Gordon has a couple of options, 3 options. He can re-sign with the Celtics on a long-term deal, or he can sign with one of the 2 teams with significant cap space. That's the Knicks or the Hawks. The third option is he can agree to a sign and trade with a team that does not have enough cap space to sign him. We've heard a lot about the Indiana Pacers as a possibility, as Gordon Hayward is from that area. Let's bring in Tim Legler, Richard Jefferson for more on this one. Legs, let me start with you, because first and foremost, $34.2 million. Gordon Hayward says, no, I'm going to leave a team that's been one of the tops in the East for the last couple of years. You think this was the right decision by Gordon Hayward, given what he's been through, not healthy the last couple of years in particular?
Well, let's see what he's got in mind, Sage, because I know I physically can't even make my mouth formulate the words, I don't want $34 million. I can't physically do that. So he must have something in mind that he wants. That's a head scratcher for me. I assumed he would take that $34 million. He's on a team that potentially can get to the finals or win a championship. He might not like his role as much as fourth fiddle in Boston, but he's still got $34 million coming and then hit free agency next summer. There's clearly something there that he doesn't like about that situation. And he thinks maybe he's got more to offer, and it may be a more pronounced role with a different team. So I think sign and trade sounds like it may be the route that this is going. Indiana's coming up a lot in this, and the rumors about what Boston's going to get back include Miles Turner, which I think would be a tremendous pickup for the Celtics. And I think you've got enough offense there in Boston that you could actually value the shot blocking and rim protection of Miles Turner more than, the 14, 15 points you could get out of Gordon Hayward. So I'm shocked he turned down the $34 million, but he clearly has something else that he is looking for at this stage of his career, having just turned 30 years old. Let's see exactly what it is that Gordon Hayward has in mind, because I think we're all waiting to see.
Look, I agree with you, Legs, but we've already seen a little bit of tampering being talked about. So a lot of times these deals are done, weeks before, days before the actual deadline comes. And I think it's a good idea. And the reason why I think it's a good idea is this. He has had injury issues. So for him being 30 years old, it's better for him to try and find a 3 or 4 year deal. And if the Boston Celtics aren't going to extend him, because that would also mean that he would have to take up that $34 million contract, then he puts himself in a very, very difficult spot, because that's not what Boston wants to do. I think this is the best idea for him. You might not get 34 on the open market, but if you can get 3 or 4 years, I think Gordon Hayward is making the right decision. And if I were the Knicks, because I know Gordon Hayward as an individual and as a competitor, he's the type of guy that you want on your team and in your franchise. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Knicks make a very, very hard play for him.
Yeah, fascinating, because, I mean, who knows? Maybe being that fourth guy in Boston wasn't enough for him. We will see. It's going to be fascinating to see what ends up happening there. Maybe it's New York, maybe it's Atlanta, maybe it's not. But what about the Celtics? And RJ, I'll start with you on this one. So it looks like Hayward could be on the way out. We know Enes Kanter traded away today, going back to Portland. They haven't made it to the finals yet with this current group. Of course, Kemba added just last year. What's the key for them to get there?
Well, you're going to start to hear a lot of rumors. One thing that no one questions is Danny Ainge and his vision for the Boston Celtics. Look, they made some right decisions in the past year. One of them not bringing back Al Horford for the money that he was going to command. But I still think that they were lacking in size. And I think that lack of size probably is what stopped them from getting to the NBA Finals. Now, look, if you can, one of the potential trades talked about was the Gordon Hayward and getting Miles Turner. Now, I think that makes a lot of sense for Boston, but I don't know how much sense that makes for Indiana. But yeah, if they're able to pull off the Miles Turner and get that size and pair that with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker, that could be a very, very fierce team going forward.
Yeah, I agree with RJ in terms of needing another big, and that's why if something does go down with Indiana and they get Miles Turner back, well, you talk about the perfect fit for what they need, particularly defensively. I just think looking at the Celtics and why, maybe they're not going to miss Gordon Hayward right now. I think Gordon Hayward never really came back comfortable from those injuries. You got to remember, he's entering his 4th season since he was an All-Star. It's been a long time, and he's had little sporadic bursts of time in the last 3 years where he kind of looked like himself but couldn't keep it together, and he seemed like he'd go out with another another injury. They look at their roster and say, we've got a guy now that's an all-league caliber player in Jason Tatum. We've got a guy that's an all-star caliber player in Jaylen Brown. They've got to figure out what happened in the playoffs with Kemba Walker and why he had such a hard time staying aggressive while those guys were playing well. They've got to figure that out. If they do, they've got enough offense. They've got to get some more size up front so that they can contend on the glass with some of these teams and hope that Tatum and Brown in particular take another step forward. And if they do, Boston is right there in the mix to win the Eastern Conference. There's no doubt about it.
They've been one of the top seeds, if not the favorite by many, coming into the last several seasons and have fallen short each time. Let's see what they're going to do to get over that hump. Legs, RJ, thank you. Kevin, over to you.
Sage, let's stay in the East conversation. Let's bring up the Sixers and the Knicks, and Stephen A. Smith joining us now. We'll get to the Knicks in a moment, but Philly last offseason, they were very busy with deals at the start of free agency. They gave big contracts to Al Horford, Tobias Harris, max deal to Ben Simmons. Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers now leading this team. Horford is gone in that big contract. Do you expect more to be active in free agency here?
Well, first of all, that's his MO. So, of course, I expect him to be active. Secondly, and more importantly, think about what he's doing here. You add Danny Green, you add Terrence Ferguson, you definitely add Seth Curry, who's a Curry. That means he can shoot, okay? So you're trying to surround your big man, Joel Embiid, with shooters, particularly in the event that you end up losing Ben Simmons because you're going after James Harden yourself. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but I know if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I certainly do not want to let James Harden go to Brooklyn. Remember, Daryl Morey was mired in the Western Conference for years, teasing about the potential championship squad that he had, but he kept running into a trifecta that he simply couldn't match up against in the Golden State Warriors with the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of basketball in Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, along with Kevin Durant. Now Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn. He's got Kyrie, and he could potentially get Harden. If you're Daryl Morey, you want to make sure you get Harden to pair him with Embiid. You might want to hold on to Ben Simmons, but I doubt Tillman Fertitta and the Rockets will let you. You'll have to give up multiple pieces, picks, and things of that nature. But again, this is Daryl Morey that we're talking about. The man doesn't stand still. He certainly isn't averse to making moves. That has been his history. I don't know if there's anybody in the league that has made more moves than him in the last 12 to 13 years. I think he's like top two in the league in the number of moves. So I think he'll try something. Whether he'll be able to pull it off remains to be seen. But clearly, with what they're doing, they want to surround Joel Embiid with shooters. And I think you know this better than most, Kevin. We love Ben Simmons. He's a star and a stud, but a shooter, he is not.
So surround him with guys that can space the floor and shoot. And meanwhile, let's talk about your Knicks. They shed some deals earlier this week. It's been a very good week in New York. Obi Toppin now coming in. Now the Knicks have $35 million in space. What do you expect to see from Leon Rose?
Well, I think they're going to go after one or two people. They're certainly going to go after Gordon Hayward. They think he fills all the boxes and he's an ideal fit for them. I'm not sure that's true, particularly since they drafted Obi Toppin and he's box office attraction and he can pretty much play that position, even though Gordon Hayward could play the 2 or the 3, as far as I'm concerned, at least on the offensive side of the floor. But I like Fred VanVleet, and I think that even though you're hearing that he'll probably re-sign and stay in Toronto with the Raptors, even though they'll be playing in Tampa at the beginning of the season, I would love to see the New York Knicks get a point guard, somebody who's a threat to score the ball, who's poised, doesn't fold under pressure, can put up points from the perimeter, and has a championship pedigree. That's Fred VanVleet, not Frank Ntilikina, which is a primary reason why Phil Jackson is no longer an executive in the National Basketball Association, because that was his draft pick. And by the way, he passed up on Donovan Mitchell in order to get that dude. Don't get me started. In the end, what it comes down to is I think you need guard play. I think you need elevated guard play. I know the Knicks like Gordon Hayward. Obviously, having $35 million in cap space, it looks like he's the guy they may go after. We don't know what that's going to materialize into. He was competing for a championship. Clearly, that's not going to be the immediate future for the New York Knicks. So I don't know whether he'll resign with Boston, go to Indiana, or go someplace else. But the New York Knicks are definitely in play. So they say. We'll see what happens with that. But I do believe Fred VanVleet should be somebody they consider if he gives any kind of indication that he's willing to consider them, because that little brother can play.